Praise the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everybody that's here in the name of Jesus. Here not only to observe the Lord's weekly Sabbath, but we also know this is the Feast of Tabernacles. Today is the fourth day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Just like you read in John 7, most people don't know about the feast days that's in the Bible. Matter of fact, when you talk about them, people think you come from another planet or something, even though it's in the Bible that they walking around with. But when you read John the 7th chapter, you see that it was this feast that Jesus went to, and in the midst of this feast, which would be around this time, around verse 14, it said Jesus went up in the temple and taught. So this shows you that this is not something just consigned to the Old Testament. This is the whole Bible, because the whole Bible go together. And that's what Jesus was doing in John 7, observing this feast, even when they was trying to kill him. So, again, we welcome everybody here, not just here, the people that's on the line, and also on the internet, because we got a lot of people that's seeking the word the way it is in the Bible, all over the country, trying to find out about God the way it really is. So we know we got other congregations. Brother Ron, he went to Indianapolis to preach the word out the Bible. Brother Nehemiah went to L.A., and Brother Wayne is in Philadelphia. And I'm going to mention some of the people who we know that's listening with us all the time. Well, we know, I'm going to read this letter first before we get into the lesson. This is from, we know we had some of the members from California here for the, around the trumpets, around that time, Sister Donna and Monique and their mother, Sister Berthenia, Miss Robinson. This is a letter they wrote. Brother Elijah in Israel, the Church of Jesus, greetings from sunny California. It is 99 degrees here today. So what? But we just wanted to say a quick thank you to our home team. You all were so nice, and we appreciate all the love you gave us. We are definitely planning to come back, but no time soon, because we know that the cold weather will be kicking in soon. When we came back to L.A., everyone was hating on us. Just kidding. They wish they could have come too. Until next time, much love, Donna, Monique, and Berthanium. So that's from the L.A. congregation. And just to mention some of the people, because we don't mention them all the time, but we know they paying attention and getting the word, just like we getting it here the best they can online. And if we don't mention your name, it's just because it's just an oversight, not that we're not thinking about you. But this Sister Kerma, she's in California, about 2 or 3 hours away from the Los Angeles class, so she doesn't make that. Matter of fact, she's only made one meeting, but she watches all the time. She made the first class that we had in Los Angeles, which that was over 6 years ago. She made it to that. But she hasn't been back, but she pay attention all the time and is online, I'm sure now, watching us. Sister Kerma, she's in by San Diego. And Sister Mary, that's one of the brothers in California, Derek's mother, but she's watching all the time and paying attention in Fresno. It's a brother Michael and his wife, Michelle. They in Stone Mountain, Georgia. See, we just want to recognize these people who are with us all the time. Brother Albert and Ethel Hall, they're a little ways from the Philadelphia congregation, but they always are with us in spirit in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Sister Cheryl, Dallas. Sister Venus in Detroit. Brother Gary in Oklahoma City. Also in Oklahoma City, Sister Tanika. I know she's on the line. because some people take hold of the word quicker than others, and she grabbed hold of the word right away. She gonna get here and get baptized. She keep telling me that, and I believe her. But she's in Oklahoma City as well. Brother Lawrence in Dallas. I know if he don't go to the Dallas class, the brother Bowie has, he's watching us online. He do a little bit of both of them, and make sure he get all the CDs from us. Brother Timothy Eckhart, Indiana. Brother Durrell in Oxnard, California. Brother Harold, he used to live in California. He's down by San Antonio now, Converse, Texas. I read a card about 2 weeks ago from this brother in Maryland by Baltimore, Brother Whitney. And Sister Anne Marie, Akron. Sister Benita, Phoenix. Sister Salika in Morgantown, North Carolina. She is really diligent about the word, trying to convert her whole family to the word. And Brother Devin ended up going to North Carolina to baptize her, about a year or so ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah, about a year ago. Sister Darlene in West Covina, California. These are people that can't really make it to class, but they do the best they can where they at and wish they had a class closer to them. Brother Cornell in Rockaway Beach, New York. Sister Josie, most of y'all heard of her. She's still diligent with the word in Houston. Sister Kim, she's glad that we opened up the Indianapolis class, but before that she was with us one way or another, either online or making sure she's getting all the CDs. Sister Minnie, Las Vegas. Brother Jediah and his wife, Raquel, right outside Atlanta. Brother George, he's in the same area in Hiram, Georgia. This brother, Sister Betty Medina, New York. I'm just hitting some of the people who we know are with us. Sister Geraldine in St. Louis, who came and got baptized a little while ago. So that's just some of the people who we don't mention all the time. It's more out there. Brother Michelle's son, Brother Nashan, and her daughter Tamar, she go to the Philadelphia class, which she about 2 hours away, but she drive there every week. And Brother Nashan in Florida. So that's just a few people who we know are getting the word, one way or another, whether it be on the phone line or on the internet. They are with us as well. But now we're going to get into the lesson. And being that this is the Feast of Tabernacles, the fourth day, like I said, we're going to have a lesson that still along those lines, because we dealt with it on the first day, how God is going to gather Israel from the four corners of the earth, and that's what this feast is pointing us to. But this just shows you we can do a whole nother lesson and really don't mention hardly any of the scriptures that was in the first lesson we had. So this is along those lines. We're just going to point out another facet of it, and that is that if the Lord gave you the Feast of Ingathering, also called Tabernacles, and it's talking about gathering Israel, he knew up front he was going to have to scatter them, because the Lord is the one that scattered his people all over the world to the four corners. The Lord is the one. And that is no accident. But again, people don't recognize what's in the Bible. You talk about the Feast of Tabernacles to the average person that say they believe in God, calling on Jesus' name. You mention the Feast of Tabernacles to them, you might as well be speaking Russian. Because that don't make no sense to them. And they got a Bible. It's in their Bible, but you might as well be speaking a foreign language for the most part. They think something is wrong with you. Let alone you tell people you're taking off work to observe it. But this is what everybody is going to be recognizing in a little bit. Like we read on the first day of the feast, Zechariah 14, the Lord say when he come back, everybody going to have to come up from year to year and keep the Feast of Tabernacles. They're going to keep God's holy days. That's in the Holy Bible. And it shows you that can only be from Satan, that we have dismissed everything that's in the Bible. And we look at that as something foreign, but stuff that man has handed down to us by way of tradition, we accept that readily. We accept that without even question. Don't question Christmas. Don't question Easter. But then you're going to question what I can read out the Bible. Something is wrong with that picture. Read it right out the Bible. People start questioning. Well, tabernacle. What do you mean tabernacles? It's in your Bible. So we're going to deal with something along those lines. And we got a lot of stuff to do. We're going to have a baptism. And we're going to do a little feasting. Because the Lord said feast 7 days. He meant 7 days. Today is the 4th day. Even though it's the weekly Sabbath, we can still feast on it. We understand that. Because he said 7. He knew it was going to fall on the weekly Sabbath every time. It's going to go past 1. But now, Leviticus 23, the scattering and gathering of God's people. The scattering and gathering of God's people. But we still doing, the only difference in this weekly Sabbath is that we're going to feast. It's still the weekly Sabbath, and that's why we're here to have a holy convocation. Because we wouldn't have to have a holy convocation if it just was the 4th day of Tabernacles. So we doing both, like the Lord said, don't diminish y'all. The scattering and gathering of God's people. And we're going to start off in Leviticus 23, where he mentioned how this holy day had started off with reference to what he did when he brought Israel out of Egypt. But we know he's taking it further than that. But go ahead. Leviticus 23 and verse 33. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles, for 7 days unto the Lord.
See now, a lot of people again, they read this and they dismiss it like, oh, well, that was something back then. You don't have to do it. But what gives you the right to throw away this and accept man-made tradition or holidays? What gives you the right to do that? That can only be from Satan, going to replace what God is saying in the Bible. What God is saying has great meaning down to the end of the world and beyond. Great significance. And that's how you know you're dealing with God. You can back it up. You can prove it all over the Bible. This is a short lesson. We only got 12 scriptures, 40-some verses. But even though it's a short lesson, it's 40-some verses more than the average person going to get tomorrow in church. 40 times more. And this is short for us. This is about half of what we normally be dealing with. But now, he said, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. So he said 7 days, and he meant 7 days. Then he's going to let us climax it on the 8th day. But now, skip down to verse 39, because we're going to read a little bit more about it. Go ahead.
Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days.
Now he said it again, keep a feast unto the Lord. This is a solemn feast because it's about God. It ain't about the pastor. It's not about no anniversary. It's about the Lord. We honor him. So he said, when you gather in the fruit of the land, because that's another name for you. Read Exodus 23. He tell you it's also the Feast of Ingathering. Because it's pointing to when the Lord gather his people home to their tabernacle. So he said, when you gather in the fruit of the land, you're going to keep a feast unto the Lord. How many days?
7 days.
What else?
On the first day shall be a Sabbath.
That's why we was here Wednesday. You got to have meetings on the Sabbath days around the feast. So the first day was a Sabbath, and what else?
And on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath.
Okay, that's why we're going to be back Wednesday to conclude things on the 8th day. That's when it's going to be the conclusion. But now, go ahead, keep reading a little bit more.
Verse 40. And ye shall take unto you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of fig trees, and willow of the brook. And shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days.
Now he's going to tell you about how he made Israel dwell in booths. You know, we can only do so much in our present situation. Certain things were set up particularly to do in the promised land. But go ahead.
And ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generation.
Forever. You keep this a feast. Go ahead.
Ye shall celebrate it in the 7th month.
In the 7th month at this time, because this is the 7th month on God's calendar. Go ahead.
Ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelite born shall dwell in booths.
Now what does the booth signify? See, this is where tabernacle come in at. This was a little temporary tabernacle. But it's signifying something. Go ahead.
That your generations may know that I have made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God.
See, this lets you know God had bigger intentions than it just being about gathering in the fruit of the land. Because he mentioned that. He mentioned when you gathered in the fruit of the land and referred to it as the Feast of Ingathering. But this shows you this is more so in reference to people. Because he said that the children of Israel, that the generation may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. Notice it's centered around them being delivered from slavery out of Egypt. But see, he got bigger plans than that, because we know he's going to deliver Israel from slavery this time out of the whole world. That's why we read from the four corners in Isaiah 11 last week. That's where Israel is. But in Isaiah 11, he referred to that deliverance as the second time. Because he only can compare it. It's so great, he can only compare it to this time right here when he brought them out of Egypt. Even though Israel had been in and out of captivity, they've been delivered before. Ezra and Nehemiah went home from slavery. But that wasn't no great deliverance. That's how you know in 1948 when the Edomites say they went to the land, that wasn't God delivering them. When Israel go home finally, the real Israel, it will be more dramatic than when God brought them out of Egypt, when he put plagues on Pharaoh and brought them out. So he referred us to that. He said that your generation may know I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Go ahead and read 44.
And Moses declared unto the children of Israel the feasts of the Lord.
Not the feast of the Jews, not the Moses feast. No, he declared the feast of the Lord. Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28. Because we just want to show you that that's what that's referencing. It's pointing to the time when God gathered Israel the first time and brought them out and gave them some shelter, but also the last time. See, he tell you that. Just like the title of the lesson is, the scattering and gathering of God's people, you got a direct quote talking about that, but yet don't nobody understand that that's Jesus' mission at the second coming. To gather his people that's been scattered all over the world. Don't nobody understand that. And this is one of the most profound things in the Bible that God is going to do that's going to affect the whole world. Not going to just affect Israel, but you got people that have been believing in God all their life, 30, 40, 50 years, and don't have a clue about this. That tells you something's wrong. But again, for them to be in need to be gathered, for us to have a Feast of Tabernacles, a Feast of Ingathering, point to the time. I guess this mic ain't working no more. Maybe the battery dead. Yeah, give me a battery.
What is it? Is it 9-volt or double A?
We have a lot of complications today, huh? So, for there to be a such thing as a feast of ingathering, pointing to the Lord gathering Israel, they had to be scattered. And God knew that well in advance, so that's why he could set this feast up even before Israel was scattered for the final time all over the world. So we're going to get into that. Like I said, this ain't nothing we making up. We got, like the preacher say, my text is from. Well, if you want to know where the text is from, we're going to get to it. But it's from Jeremiah 31, verse 10. That's where the Lord says specifically about scattering and gathering Israel. And this is all over the Bible. That's why we got all these other texts here. Our text is really just from the Bible. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68. Because this is really, we just read in Leviticus 23, I think it was verse 43, where he talked about when I brought you out of Egypt, that people may know that I made you dwell in booths when I brought you out of Egypt, right? Mm-hmm. So he talked about Egypt. But now here, he going to talk about Egypt in a spiritual sense, but it's going to mean the same thing. It's going to mean bondage or slavery. See, that's the key to understanding who the real Israel is. They have to be in bondage or slavery. If you understand that, you got way ahead of everybody else. That's why people misguided think the people that went to Israel in 48 is Israel. They couldn't be. Israel got to be in slavery till Jesus comes. Don't even know, like they were singing that song that took so long for them to play. I had to get a crack in on that. You lucky ain't my teacher. He would have been and shut it down or did something. But like they were singing that song, Israel don't even know who they are. That's a shame. Israel don't have a name, don't even know where they are, but God planned to rectify that. Deuteronomy 28. See, brother, this one let me know something. I had tried my hand at reading the Bible back when I was in high school. I said, let me read the Bible more and more. I started reading the Bible and seeking the Lord, wasn't getting nowhere until I found somebody to teach something. One brother pointed this one verse out to me. Matter of fact, we was on our way to do something wrong. And he seen the Bible in my dorm room. He seen the Bible there. It was sitting on the desk. You know how people walk around, have a Bible, don't read it? Well, I was doing that then. And he came in, seen the Bible. I tell you what we was doing. We was going to get some reefer. I ain't going to lie. But anyway, I'm going to keep it real. This was almost 30 years ago. That's why I don't smoke reefer no more. But anyway, the Bible was on my dorm room, and we went there to get some money, and he stopped, and he pointed to it, he said, you read that? And I was honest, no, not no more, not really. I don't know why I still had it sitting there. I guess for this moment. And he said, he flipped over to this verse right here. This is the only verse he read to me that blew me away. Deuteronomy 28:68. Read it.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again.
Oh, now he said, the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again. Now he brought them out of Egypt, slavery, right? Mm-hmm. But they walked out. They didn't need no ship to get all the way to the promised land, right? See, so this lets you know this is talking Egypt in a spiritual sense. Not literal Egypt, and we're going to show you what he's saying. He said, the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. This time, you going on some ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, go ahead.
Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
Now he read this verse to me, and then he asked me one question. He said, now how did we get to this country? And it hit me like a light. I was amazed, and what really was amazing, I had read the whole book of Deuteronomy and didn't have a clue of nothing along those lines. Not probably a year or so prior to that, when I was still reading the Bible, I had read this, even had a conversation with somebody, didn't get nothing out of it. That's so somebody got to point it out to you. And he said, well, how do we get to this country? And I said, we got here on ships. He said, that's talking about us. And I've been messed up ever since. Been messed up. But that's what it is. He said, you're going on ships. Egypt, see in the Bible, Egypt often is referred to as what? The house of bondage. Even in the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments start off, the Lord said, I brought you out of Egypt, the house of bondage. So Israel looked at Egypt as slavery. So when the Lord said you're going back into Egypt in ships, he's really talking about slavery, period. Because Israel got to be more than just in literal Egypt now. They all over the world. And you didn't need no ship to get from Israel to Egypt. So he is talking about scattering you in bondage on slave ships. Then that's why he said, at the end of that, read the end of 68.
68. It says, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen.
Oh, when you go on them ships, you're going to get taken off on ships. And when you get to where they take you on those slave ships, he said, you are going to be sold unto your enemies. Now see, the people over there in the promised land say they Jews can't never say this happened to them. No. They might cry about the Holocaust, which might be bad, but it ain't none compared to this. See, they can't say this. When they went and got sold, went on some ships and got sold somewhere. Never happened. He said, you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. That means male slaves and female slaves. They take them all. They hold back on nobody. They ain't give the females a break. Bondmen and bondwomen. And then he said, no man shall buy you. That don't mean you wasn't going to get sold into slavery, because he just told you that, right? He said you shall be sold, right? So what do you mean, no man? In other words, when you get sold, when you go on those ships and get sold, you're going to be there for the duration. You might as well pack it in. You're going to be there. Don't be stupid like Kunta Kinte, try to think you're going to get away and do something. You're going to lose your foot. That's what he's telling you. And ain't nobody going to help you. Just like we had people like Marcus Garvey, other people talking about, oh, we need to go back to Africa. Isn't it amazing nobody from Africa never came looking for you? That's what he means. Ain't nobody coming looking for you. Ain't nobody saying, well, my people got sold years ago, and, I want to get them back. Can I buy them back? I got so much money. You got an African country, you got a little money. But ain't nobody trying to get you out of this, is what he's saying. But now, back up, we going to see exactly, because this chapter lay out all the curses, but the main ingredient is being scattered in the bond. That's the title of the lesson, the scattering and gathering. See, Israel had to be scattered so the Lord can fulfill this Feast of Tabernacles in gathering. Verse 25, back up and we're going to pick a few high points of this scattering. Go ahead.
And the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies.
See, he told them already before we got to that last verse. See, he was just summing it up then. But he mentioned them slave ships. The Lord going to cause you to be smitten before your enemies. See, the Lord can be on your side and he can make sure you can be by yourself and you can beat 1,000 people. But woe to you if you make the Lord mad. It can be 1,000 of you and a few of them, and the Lord going to let them whoop on you. And that's what he's been doing. See, the Lord shall cause you to be smitten before your enemies. What?
Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them.
See, you're going to go fighting, but you're going to be running. You're going to turn your back running. Go ahead.
And shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
Oh, see, that's what he was talking about, going into Egypt with ships. You're going to be removed. Removed don't mean you migrate on your own. Everybody in this country came from other countries, came on their own, didn't they? They migrated. A lot of people came because they feel it's going to be better. Oh, it's a good place. You can make it happen in this country. That's what the majority of people came to this country for a better life, right? They migrated here on their own. But you got one group of people everybody know. It's even in history books that didn't migrate here on their own. They was brought here, right? See, but we showing you that this is from the Lord. See, when you understand this, you ain't got to be mad at nobody. Just like brother, some all the white man is. Look, God run the show. Exactly. God is the one doing it. Exactly. And he's telling you what was going to happen right here. See, this will shed light on what's going on around you. So he said, the Lord going to cause you to be smitten before your enemy. Then at the end, he said, and you shall be removed. That means somebody if you remove something, you take it from A and take it to point B, right? Where's point B? All the kingdoms of the world. You all over the place. We're not just in this country, but everywhere we at, this is how we got there as a whole. This is how we got there everywhere. Like I said, me and my wife went to the Bahamas And we was trying to get some of them free meals going on them timeshare things where they try to sell you a timeshare. We wasn't buying nothing. We just getting, they feed you. So we went there, and one of the sisters in the Bahamas, she took us and she's showing us. We told her first, look, we ain't gonna buy nothing. We just want the food. She said, I understand. People do it. So then I said, well, do you know, how did y'all people over here in the Bahamas get here? She looked at me like I was a fool. I just wanted to hear her say. She looked at me. She said, how you think on them ships like y'all got over there? She knew it. She looked at me like, what? I just wanted to hear her say it though. Because most people don't pay attention to that. But she knew it. But now, skip down to verse 32. Go ahead.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. And thy eyes shall look, and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thy hand.
Well, that's a heavy curse from God, isn't it? Where they just take your sons or your daughter, take them out your arms, give them here. And you crying and trying to hold on. They dragging them away. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's a curse from God, isn't it? You a grown man, grown woman, somebody take your kid. That's where, again, they showed the example of that. One example, which it was a wholesale thing for this people. See, he's not talking about this going to happen to a few individuals or family or something like that, right? He's not talking about that. He's talking about a whole nation. This is going to be wholesale for this people, right? So Kunta Kinte and what they showed in Roots was just a minute example of what happened as a whole, wasn't it? Everybody know that. And what happened? Even Kunta Kinte, he didn't understand this prophecy, obviously. Because he trying to fight it every step of the way. Tried to run away, lost his foot. Then when he finally settled down, he still didn't settle down all the way in his mind. So he had a baby, and since they was, Muslims be worshiping the moon anyway, that's why they got that moon. So he hold the baby up to the moon. They telling the truth. He holding the baby up to the moon, talking about behold the only greater thing than you. That's a lie. But anyway. But then he named her Kizzy, which mean what? Stay put. He said, it ain't gonna happen to you. You ain't gonna get taken. Look, the Bible says she will. The Bible says your sons and your daughters shall be given to somebody else. And what happened? Kizzy made the master mad. The master sold Kizzy away, didn't he? Could Kunta Kinte do anything? Why? Because it said, your eyes shall look and fail with longing for them. You longing for your child, and they being driven off in a buggy. All the day long, and there shall be no might in your hand. Kunta Kinte had wise up there, he ain't even try to do nothing. Only thing he did with his hand is beat the ground. Because he knew he couldn't do nothing. Go ahead, 33.
The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up.
See, we don't even know we got a land now. But we had a land, but that's because when we went into slavery, somebody else took it over. And people fighting over to this day. He said, a nation which thou knowest not will eat it up. But what's going to happen to you on the other hand?
And thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed all.
See, you're going to have to deal with oppression. But again, this is from God. When you understand that God is in control, then you can do what's necessary to rectify it, and you can understand the big picture that in the end, he's going to gather Israel from this bad predicament. But you got to do something even to be a part of that, because he wants you to do what got you in trouble in the first place. Reverse that, and that is be obedient to him. But now, skip down to verse 41, because we're going to read a little bit more. We just showing. For Israel to have to get gathered, they had to get scattered. 41.
Thou shalt begat sons and daughters.
He's saying it again, just in case you missed it. Go ahead.
But thou shalt not enjoy them.
Why? Why do you want to enjoy your own sons and daughters?
For they shall go into captivity.
See, captivity, that's slavery. Had to happen. Skip down to verse 64. Go ahead.
And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people.
So now who's doing it? Again, you can't blame no people. You can't blame man. Man only carrying out what God has ordained. Right. Man, he ain't got no choice in the matter. You can't even blame him. God said it's going to happen. It had to happen. Now the problem with man is he don't know when enough is enough. Just like he let Pharaoh oppress Israel. Then when he come to Pharaoh and say, okay, let my people go, Pharaoh don't want to listen in. So now he got to pay, and that's what's going to happen to man now. See, we tell them the reason why this happened. So he said, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people. That's absolute, right? Exactly. All over. See, that's key to where Israel is now. That's why the ships was necessary. To get you all over. From where?
From the one end of the earth even unto the other.
Oh, from one end of the earth to the other. That's why we titled the last lesson, the four corners. But go ahead.
And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. See, then you're going to serve other gods among these days. See, we worshiping everybody else's God. We believe it. You know, they gave us a new Sabbath. We believe that. When the seventh day is God's Sabbath in the Bible. And we follow suit. People tell you to put Christmas trees in your house. You do that, not knowing that's a wooden God. God don't like that. But now we can read 68 again, and it'll make a little more sense now that we know the background of the situation. Go ahead. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
See, we talking slavery. Go ahead.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
Go ahead.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
Okay, let's read a little further in Joel 3. Joel 3. See, this is the scattering and the gathering of God's people. See, it had to happen. And we're going to get to the New Testament. People, they run their mouth and say, well, the New Testament is not concerned about that. He's not even concerned with Israel no more. And they try to separate Jesus like he don't have nothing to do with Israel. Somebody is lying. We ain't got all this scripture all over the Bible for no reason. Joel 3, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Joel 3 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
For behold, in those days, in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
See, that's he's talking about when he bring Israel back now. That's what he's going to do in the end. He's going to get all nations together because he's going to have to whip them all. He's going to have to whip them down. He's going to get them all down at Armageddon. That's where Jehoshaphat, the valley of Jehoshaphat. That's where he's going to judge the nations at. So now, he said, I will gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there. People say God don't care about Israel no more. They need to read the Bible closer. He said he's going to plead with them there for who?
For my people.
For my people and who? My people and who else?
And my heritage Israel.
My heritage Israel. That's his heritage. And what has happened to his heritage? Go ahead.
Whom they have scattered among the nations.
Oh, there you go. We scattered. See, God ordained it, but people did it, and not people. If we really said all the Israelites want to leave and go somewhere, these countries won't let Israel go. They're not going to do it. So that's why they even took in control of the situation. So he said, whom they have scattered among the nations and did what else?
And parted my land.
And split God's land up. Now they arguing and fighting over because they can't keep with the deals that they made. Verse 3.
They have cast lots for my people.
They cast lots for his people. That's at the auction block. That's what you did. You did it for people like they was some property. Because that's what they were, right? He said you was going to get sold to your enemies, didn't you? This is in the Bible for a reason. Go ahead.
And have given a boy for a harlot.
See, they even gave up a whole child, a boy, for a prostitute. That shows you wasn't nothing but property. Go ahead.
And sold a girl for wine.
And sold a whole girl. Not a half a girl. Sold a whole girl for some wine, right? Go ahead.
That they might drink.
That they might drink. That shows you was just a piece of property. Skip down to verse 6 and go ahead.
The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem.
See, this again how you can identify the real Jews. The children also of Judah and Jerusalem, what has happened to them? Let's read it.
Have ye sold unto the Greeks?
Oh, they got sold, didn't they? See, didn't Moses say in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68, you're going to get sold to your enemies? And he said, no man should buy you. See, that lets you know he was talking about nobody going to buy you back. You got sold. Bond men and bond women. Nobody going to buy you back out of that condition. You going to be there. That's why even every Israelite born here, they wake up knowing that they descendants of slaves. And then we don't pay attention even when it looked like one of us became president, he wasn't even one of you. See, that didn't even happen. See, we don't pay attention to none of that. But now, he said, look, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye been what? Sold. Unto who?
The Grecians.
The Grecians, or the Gentiles, period. Right. See, sometimes we talk about the Gentiles, they say, oh, the white man do this, the white man do this. Look, it wasn't even just them by themselves. They bought somebody, but somebody sold you. Who sold? Even we don't know that other black people sold Israel. Other black people. He named some of them in this chapter. Tyree and Zidon, these are black people. So they gathered the Israelites up because they knew they wasn't the same. See, we think it's a black thing, but now it's a lot of different black nationalities. Yeah. So they gathered this people up who God was mad and cursed, and they said, look, we're going to make some money off this people. We're going to sell them and get us some wine, get us some rum, get us some tobacco. They was selling, they was trading, bartering for all kind of stuff with Israel. So he said, the children of Judah and the children of Jerusalem, again, this ain't nothing we making up, is it? Nope. We reading the Bible. Like Brother Stevie say all the time, he said, we can read the Bible, can't we? Because people really don't want to. They just be fronting like they do. But we gonna read it. Read it again, verse 6.
The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border.
See, far from your border. Sold them, and that's where the slave ships came in at. That's the only way you can get real far, right? They didn't have no airplanes in those days. So the only way you can get real far, they had to put you on some slave ships. But now, let's go to Luke 21. Let's get to the New Testament, because people think it stopped in the Old Testament. And, you know, they just put on blinders. They put on blinders to everything in the Old Testament, think the New Testament give them something different, but they ain't reading the New Testament. They don't believe the New Testament, because the New Testament and the Old Testament go together like a hand and a glove. It ain't saying nothing different. All you got to do is read it and believe it. But people cover their eyes and act like it's something and try to imagine something different. Luke 21. This is Jesus himself talking about really the finalization of this bad situation when Israel was going to go out for the last time permanently. Because at Jesus' time, it was still Israelites in the promised land. He was one of them. See, but he knew it wasn't going to be long. All the rest of y'all got to go. Like Moses said, like we just read what Joel said, Jesus saying the same thing. We can read a whole lot of more people that said it. Jesus saying the same thing. 21 and 20. Go ahead.
And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
See, now Jesus telling you, because remember, he said it had to get destroyed and the people go into slavery, right? Mm-hmm. They had to come take you out of your land. He said you're going to be removed into all the countries of the world, right? Into all the kingdoms of the earth. Right. So it had to get fertilized at some point, right? It was still Israelites here at Jesus' time. He was one of them. But he letting it be known, like Joel just said, the children of Judah and Jerusalem have ye taken and sold to the Grecians, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Jesus telling you, it's going to come a time where Jerusalem is going to be compassed with armies. It's about to get destroyed. And what happened when they get destroyed? What's going to happen with the people? They going off into bondage, into slavery. Verse 24. Let's make sure.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
See, just like Deuteronomy said, you're going to fall by the edge of the sword. You ain't going to be able to put up a fight against your enemies. You're going to fall, and what's going to happen to you?
And should be led away captive into all nations.
You mean Jesus talk about a little slavery too, huh? He ain't immune from talking about slavery. You talk about stuff like, oh, why he talking about that? We just about love, and Jesus just saved. See, I just want to talk about Jesus being saved. He saves us. Look, Jesus talk about it all, don't he? See, we want to sugarcoat Jesus. One guy called from the program in Philadelphia last week trying to be funny. because I guess the lesson was on, does God do evil? That's what the title was. But he called up trying to, be funny. He said, oh, well, see, the guy talking about God do evil. God, I might as well just kill myself then. I said, you going to find out about some of that evil that God do. You do that because he going to wake you up. But he was trying to be funny. Basically, he proceeded after he got out of his little acting role to try to tell us that we need to be talking about love and all of this and try to bring people to God. Look, we telling you what God is saying. That's what we going to tell you. And all of it ain't always love. This ain't love right here. This Jesus himself talking, right?
Exactly. Yep.
But he giving you the facts. What he said again, verse 24?
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
See, now this ain't nice and pretty, but Jesus is saying it, right? We should pay attention, shouldn't we? They shall fall by the edge of the sword, and what else?
And should be led away captives into all nations.
Oh, same thing everybody else been telling us. Slavery. That's how you can recognize the real Jews or Israel. Led away captive, not just in one place like ancient Egypt, right? Led away captive, where? Into all nations. See, this just set the stage, though. See, this set the stage for what we are celebrating, the Feast of Tabernacles, also known as the Feast of Ingathering. This set the stage for God to do what he'd been planning on doing. See, he knew the whole story. He knew Israel was going to mess up. He knew he was going to have to bust us upside the head, send us into slavery, and he knew he was going to gather us at the end. God knew the whole story. And he's telling you before it happened. So he said, led away captive into all nations. What about your hometown now? Go ahead.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles.
All the Gentiles overseeing your hometown now. They do what they want to do with it. Because there's a time of the Gentiles. See, even the Edomites are not Gentiles. The Arabs are not Gentiles, but they still answer to the Gentiles. The Gentiles give them a little leash. When the Gentiles get fed up, they will move both of them out the way. And that's what's going to happen in the end. That's what the Antichrist is going to do. Because the Gentiles is the one really running. That's why even now, when whoever president of the United States, if they call a peace meeting, eventually the Arabs come and the Edomites come. Even if they just come and look at each other. They come, they make them come somewhere, Camp David or somewhere, and they stare at each other. But why they go through all that? They don't want to make no deal. Because the Gentiles said, come over here. At least make it look good. Before I slap both of y'all. And they come. Let's show you the Gentiles running. That's why he said, Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until when?
Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
See, the Lord gave the Gentiles a set time to run the world. And they're going to run it till that time is up. Ain't nobody going to take it from them but the Lord. But now, go to James 1. Because again, people think the New Testament is void of talking about Israel. It's done away with Israel. Israel don't matter in the New Testament according to the average so-called Christian. They've been listening to somebody tell them that, but not getting it from the Word. See, if Israel didn't matter, even in a bad situation of being scattered all over the world, if Israel didn't matter, we wouldn't be reading about them. Even James made note to say this, who he was writing to. He made a point to let you know, and it's going to let you know the predicament of Israel. James 1:1, that's it. James 1:1, go ahead.
James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings.
Okay, now look, James, now he a servant of God and Jesus Christ, right? He was actually Jesus' brother. So, but he's a servant of the Lord. So he got that going for him, but he don't think Israel don't matter, right? Even being scattered all over the world. This is the New Testament. James made reference to Israel, the 12 tribes scattered abroad. So that showed you they were still significant in the New Testament in his mind. He said, look, even though you scattered abroad, you need to hear the word, because he knew eventually God got a plan to bring Israel back. He knew Israel was still important. So he wrote his letter to the 12 tribes, which are where? Scattered abroad. And that's where we at to this day. It won't change to the end. Till them trumpets start blowing, That's when you know Israel getting ready to go home. The world is about to change drastically. Jeremiah 31, this is where the text is from. See, we got a whole lot of text though. But this is the main text that tell us even that this is from nobody but the Lord. Jeremiah 31, back to the Old Testament. But we see the New Testament told us the same thing. Jesus let us know Israel was going to have to get scattered. The rest of them that was there. See what Jesus said in Luke 21, that was approximately 30 AD when he said it. It got fulfilled in approximately 70 AD. Jerusalem got surrounded, so approximately 40 years after Jesus spoke those words, it got fulfilled because he was prophesying of the future. He said, Jerusalem going to get some. When you see Jerusalem surrounded with armies, know that desolation there was nigh. And he told you everything was going to take place. And finally, he told you that they was going to be led away captive into all nations. And from then on, Jerusalem was going to be trodden down by other people until the end. So he told you that by the time James wrote his letter, he was referencing Israel as being in a scatter. The 12 tribes being scattered abroad, right? But now Jeremiah 31 and verse 10. Jeremiah 31 and 10. Go ahead.
Hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations.
See, the Lord wants all the nations to hear this. See, God deals with the whole world. He can handle the whole world. Just like he handled Egypt, he can handle the whole world. Hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations. Go ahead.
And declare it in the isles afar off.
And declare in the isles afar off. He said, I don't care if you're in a remote island somewhere. Listen to what I got to say. I'm saying something important. Go ahead.
And say, he that scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd doth his flock.
Oh, that's what's so important. He want everybody to hear it? Well, it's amazing. Ain't nobody heard it, right?
Nope.
Because somebody been listening to these many false prophets that Jesus warned you of. They ain't telling you nothing that's in the Bible. They might as well not even have the Bible.
Right.
The teaching that we follow in the average church or wherever you go, mosque or wherever, you might as well just throw the Bible out and listen to what the man's saying. Because that's what you're doing. They front with the Bible, but they just listen to what he's saying. He said he wants everybody to hear this. What? He that scattereth Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd doth his flock. This is that important to God, isn't it? This is what's going to happen. In a short while, it's going to happen. Go ahead, verse 11.
For the Lord hath redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he.
See, the Lord talks about like it's done. Because in his mind it is done. He called the end from the beginning. He said, the Lord hath redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than him. Go ahead.
Therefore they shall come and sing in the heights of Zion. And shall flow together to the goodness of the Lord.
See, we're going to have something to really sing about. We're going to know what we're singing about at this time. He said they're going to sing in the height of... He's talking about when he gathered Israel. See, this is so important. It's all over the Bible. We read about the scattering. Made sure they was going to get scattered according to the Bible. Even on ships, right? Jesus even made reference to it. So you can't say, oh, it was just something in the Old Testament. James made reference to Israel being scattered. So we saw them being scattered. But now, that just set the stage for this. He going to bring this people. That's going to be an amazing feat, don't you think? Israel scattered all over the world. Don't even know who they are. They lost their land, lost their name like they were singing in the song. It's a shame. And he going to fix that? That's going to be an amazing feat. But what's too hard for God? So he said, what? The Lord hath redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Therefore shall they come and sing in the height of Zion. Finish verse 12.
And flow together to the goodness of the Lord. For wheat and for wine and for oil and for the young of the flock and of the herd. Their souls shall be as water, as a watered garden, and they shall not sorrow anymore. Oh,
it's going to be a good time then. Because he's going to establish righteousness in the earth. But it's all going to revolve or center around him taking his people back, taking Israel back. This got to happen. This what got to happen to change this world. That's the way God has set it up. Go ahead.
Then shall the virgin rejoice in the dance.
Oh, the virgin gonna rejoice in the dance. Go ahead.
Both young men and old together. For I will turn their mourning into joy.
See, we should be looking for this, right? But it all centers around what he said at verse 10. He wanted everybody to hear. He that scattereth Israel will gather him. Go ahead.
And will comfort them. And make them rejoice from their sorrow.
Because they got sorrow now. You know you got sorrow when you went out and got on slave ships, packed in there like sardines and taken all over the place. A lot of people died on the way. Then you get to a place and they sell y'all to people and you got nothing but sorrow. But he going to reverse that. Go ahead.
And I will satiate the soul of the priest with fatness. And my people shall be satisfied with the goodness, saith the Lord.
See, he talking about reversing it here. The gathering, Deuteronomy 30. Deuteronomy 30, because he already told you. Even when he laid out that he was going to curse Israel down to the ground, he made room and also told them about after the curse was over with. Deuteronomy 30, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Deuteronomy 30. And verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse.
See, what we read in Deuteronomy 28, we read just a brief synopsis of the curse, but ultimately the bottom line was slavery, captivity. Sons and daughters being led into captivity. He even climaxes talking about you being sold off on slave ships. So that was a little piece of the curse. If we read the whole chapter, it was full of curses, all kind of other devastating things that was going to happen to Israel. But that is the real centerpiece of it, going into slavery. So now, but he already said here, after it's all over with, because before, at the beginning of Deuteronomy 20, he mentioned them being blessed for a moment. He said, if you do what I say, you're going to be blessed. But now when you mess up, he knew he was going to mess up. If you disobey me, you're going to be cursed to no end. This going to happen, this going to happen, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to make this happen. And it always ended in slavery. So now he's talking about the complete end of all of that. It shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I'm telling you about that day, back then. And what's going to happen?
Which I have set before thee. Thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations where the Lord thy God hath driven thee.
Okay, he said, look, when you start to wake up, you call them to mind. Remember, you've been scattered out, right? But eventually it got to come a time in your scattered state where you at in all these countries, went on slave ships, you're going to start to call to mind what's going on. You're going to start to figure out that this happened for a reason. That God got a hand in this. And you're going to start to realize you need to do something to rectify. And that's what we're trying to do here today. Turn back and obey God. That's why we done got away from traditional worship. Because this is what God calling us to do. He said, verse 2, and you shall return. Well, now, verse 1, he said, after the blessing of the curse, I said before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind, where among all nations, whither the Lord your God hath driven thee. So among these nations, you starting to wake up. And your priority need to be, verse 2, what?
And shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whether the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
See, here you go, right here. You had to get scattered, but the Lord already left room for you to be gathered. He told you how it's going to happen. In the end, you're going to be scattered out. You're going to start to wake up among these nations. But the key to it all is verse 2, and you return unto the Lord your God and obey his voice. Not according to what the pastor say, right? Oh, not according to some man-made tradition, right? No, you obey his voice according to all that he commanded you back in the day. Back then. That's what he's saying at verse 2. According to all that I command thee this day. That was back then. Thou and thy children. He didn't give you no Sunday as a Sabbath back then, did he? He didn't say you could eat anything back then, did he? He didn't give you Christmas and Easter back then, did he? No. So we got to turn back to what was given to us back then. He said, thou and your children with all your heart and with all your soul. That's when. See, we at the point now where the Lord going to gather Israel from bondage. He said, that's when the Lord thy God, verse 3, will turn. Go ahead, read verse 3.
That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity.
Turn your captivity. You in captivity until that moment. But the Lord getting ready to turn it. Go ahead.
And have compassion upon thee.
And do what?
And will return and gather thee from all nations.
All nations, not just Egypt. All nations. Where you at?
Whether the Lord thy God have scattered.
See, the scattering and the gathering of God's people. Go ahead, verse 4. He ain't going to miss nobody either. He going to bring everybody back, and the ones that want to be disobedient, he going to kill them in the wilderness. Just like he did in Egypt, didn't he? He brought all Israel out of Egypt. That was a happy day. They were singing, doing good. But you had some stiff-necked Israelites, as always. And the Lord said, y'all going to die right here in this desert. They didn't want to listen to God. See, that's going to be a shame. You're going to leave captivity just to die somewhere else. You should have just died there. But see, God going to show you the mercy of God. He's going to give you a chance. And we still going to be stiff-necked, so some of them going to die. But he ain't going to leave nobody in slavery. That's why he said, verse 4, what?
If any of thine be driven out unto the uttermost parts of heaven.
He said, I don't care where you at. You could be under a rock. You could be on the outmost parts of this world. What's going to happen?
From thence will the Lord thy God gather thee. And from thence will he fetch thee.
See, the Feast of Ingathering got great significance, don't it? Go ahead, verse 5. Let's see where you're going. We've been thinking, growing up with this false doctrine about going to heaven, right? Oh, I'm going to heaven. I can't wait to go to heaven. Let's see what the goal really is. Verse 5.
And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed.
It ain't about going to heaven, is it? He's talking about taking you into the promised land that your forefathers used to possess. But you got scattered out, right, for disobedience. But now you going back. Go ahead.
And thou shalt possess it.
Now it's your turn, and it's going to be good permanently. Go ahead.
And he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers.
See, he going to bless you above your forefathers the way they were blessed. But now verse 4, he said, if any of thine be driven out to the outmost parts of heaven, he going to gather you. He referred to it as heaven because it's going to be heaven right here on earth. He's talking about the earth, though. He ain't talking about up in the sky heaven or up in the third heaven. He's talking about the earth heaven. That's where you scattered at, right? Or else you trying to tell me some people lost in space somewhere. Or they lost up there where God is. You know, God got to send some angels. Look, they went around the mountain in heaven and got lost. Go get them people. Nah, we talking on the earth. But he said, if any of them be driven out to the outmost parts of heaven. Okay, let's go to Matthew 24. And we're going to wrap it up. Matthew 24 and verse 29. We're going to bring Jesus back in it again because he's the one going to orchestrate. He's the one gathering Israel. He's actually the one scattered Israel. He said he that scattered Israel will gather him and keep him. So he's the one doing it because he was the God of the Old Testament telling you all that stuff. Matthew 24:29. Go ahead.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be dark.
See, we know this is the end of the world. But see, people don't know what Moses just said in Deuteronomy 30 took you to the end of the world. That's what people don't know. And they don't pay attention to none of it. Moses took you to the end of the world with the gathering of Israel from captivity all over the world. He said, if any of yours be driven out to the outmost parts of heaven, the Lord going to gather you and bring you back. Well, here it is right here after tribulation of these days, which is great tribulation, which is coming fast. What's going to happen?
The sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light.
Go ahead.
The stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
He's shaking up the whole world. And what you call the solar system, all that, he gonna shake, rattle, and roll it. Go ahead.
Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
See, they mourning. They not happy to see him. They upset. The nations as a whole are upset. That's why he said all the tribes of the earth shall mourn when they see him coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Because they're going to know there's some damage about to be done. That's what they're going to know. Verse 31. And what he going to do for his people though? He going to do some damage to the world. But what about the people that's been scattered? What about them? Go ahead.
And he shall send his angel with the great sound of a trumpet.
There go that trumpet. See, the trumpet got a sound. We started off this holy season with the memorial of the blowing of the trumpets. Then we had the Day of Atonement. Now we're in the midst of the Feast of Tabernacles or ingathering. So it all go together. It's going to climax right here. He going to send his angel with a great sound of a trumpet. Go ahead.
And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds.
From the four winds, like we dealt with the other day, we focused on that part because it's all over. The four winds, Isaiah said the four corners, wherever you at, we scattered all over. But he going to bring them back. He going to send his angel with a great sound. Not a little lightweight trumpet either, right? That's a different kind of trumpet. You might have a little soft sound of a trumpet, but he said with a great sound of a trumpet, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to gather together his people, his elect, from the four winds from where?
From one end of heaven to the other.
See, that's exactly what Moses said. If any of yours be driven out to the outmost parts of heaven, didn't he? Right. See, this is showing you what Moses said is going to be fulfilled at the same time. This is one and the same. Now, go to Isaiah 27. Let's make sure. See, we like to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Ain't no room for it to be wrong. There's no room for it to be wrong. When you read it out the Bible, here a little and there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept. It ain't no doubt about it. And people don't want to listen though. That's the bad thing. That's why what we preach is going to be a witness to the majority of people because they ain't going to listen. They think we speaking a foreign language. But the good news is more and more people will hear. More people will hear and save themselves. That's the good news. Even though it's going to be a few, but some will listen. But the majority not. That's the sad thing. 27, Isaiah 27 and 12. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall be off from the channel of the river unto the stream of Egypt, and ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel.
See, that's why you got the Feast of Tabernacles. It's pointing us to this in the end. Again, you got all these scriptures, all these verses in different places in the Bible referencing this, but yet none of the preachers telling us about this. Matter of fact, some of them trying to get smart and they talking about it, but they trying to attribute to the people over there in the land now, Esau. They trying to attribute to them. They not the ones that went off into slavery, so they not the ones to be gathered. Israel had to have went on slave ships into slavery. Those the ones that God is going to gather. And we ain't going to need no help from no people, the United Nations, none of that. God is going to kick this off like he did with Egypt. But now, he said, everyone going to be gathered. Ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel. Verse 13.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown.
Oh, that's the same one Jesus talked about, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Not a little trumpet, right? It shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown. How many times we have to read it for people to get this? Go ahead.
And they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and the outcasts in the land of Egypt, and shall worship the Lord in the holy mount at Jerusalem.
See, they're going home. They being gathered. Revelation 8. Revelation 8. That's what started the feast off. The memorial of the blowing of the trumpet started this season off. The Lord, we know the Lord, like we dealt with, he going to conquer the world when he start blowing them 7 trumpets. But let's make sure. Because it's going to climax on the last one. Revelation 8 and verse 6. Okay, go ahead.
And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound.
See, that's where you're going to get the great trumpet from. 7 angels got 7 trumpets. And right here at this time where we read, they are getting ready to sound. They prepared themselves to sound. Let's get to the last one. Let's get to that great trumpet, Revelation 11 and 15. Go ahead and read it.
And the 7 angels sounded, And there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord.
See, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever.
See, but now you get a little more insight on why Christ is taking over the world. He's not taking over the world, just beat everybody down, then he's going to go back to heaven and it's going to be just devastated in the earth. No, he's taking over the world so he can fix it and bring Israel back from captivity. He got to do that. You got too many verses telling you that God going to do this for Jesus not to fulfill it. Too many verses. So we saw that what's happening when the sound of the great trumpet, Israel is being gathered. He said he got to send his angels with the sound of a great trumpet to gather together his elect. Isaiah 27 said he said that when the great trumpet is blown, Israel going to be gathered one by one. Now we see what's necessary to make Israel be gathered, because the nations ain't going to just let them do it. They ain't going to listen like Pharaoh didn't listen. They won't listen, so he going to have to take them over. That's why simultaneously the seventh angel sounded that trumpet. What are you talking about? And there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. If people love Christ the way they say, they should be happy, right? But let's see how they going to feel about it in this world. He taking over. They ain't going to like it. Verse 18. And
the nations were angry.
Oh, they don't love Christ like they say, right? Mm-hmm. This world hate Christ. It hate Christ. That's why it's totally contrary to Christ. That's why Christ going to have to come and beat the world down. And the nations not going to like it. The nations were angry. That ain't going to stop nothing. No, that ain't going to stop no show. And the nations were angry, but what?
And thy wrath is come.
See, coming with wrath, unadulterated wrath. Go ahead.
And the time of the dead that they should be judged.
And he raising the dead at this time. He doing everything. And we know he gathering Israel, right? Mm-hmm. That's what he said in Matthew 24. That's what he was quoting, really what Moses said in Deuteronomy 30. Go ahead.
That thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth.
See, he going to destroy them. That's destroying the earth. He destroying some people. But he going to give the earth to his people. The righteous going to run it. Starting with Israel and anybody else from other nations that believe, that's who going to run. That's why the Bible says the meek shall do what? Not go to heaven, what? Inherit the earth. How they inherit it? Because he's going to destroy the wicked who run the earth into the ground. He's going to destroy them right here. One more place, John 11. John 11. Two verses, 51 and 52. John 11, 51, 52. Okay, go ahead.
And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation.
See, now again, this was the high priest. He didn't mean it in a good way, but he was basically saying, we got to get rid of this guy. We got to kill him. But actually, he was right, because Jesus had to die for the people. But so he meant it in a bad way, but he was right. So he said, this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation. See, people talk about Jesus dying, Jesus dying, Jesus dying, but the Bible letting us know, first and foremost, he died for Israel, that nation. Then anybody else can be added to Israel. That's where the other nations come in. But that's how the order of things is. The Jew first, then the Gentile. But it's the real Jew. He said that he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation, but what else? 52.
And not for that nation only.
Oh, now we got other people coming. Not for that nation only, but who?
But that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad.
Oh, but that also he should gather together. See, it's one Lord, one faith, one baptism. It's one fold. We all got to be on the same path, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why he said, also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad. So that brings all the other people that believe, just like God's chosen people supposed to believe. that bring them into the fold, and he's going to gather them all together. So that's the scatter and the gathering of God's people. Hope you got some understanding in Jesus' name.